And so I have started recording. Okay. So welcome to the October 5th version of the Kubernetes SIG CLI biweekly meeting. My name is Sean Sullivan. I'll be your host today. It looks like the agenda isn't very big, but first we're going to go into announcements. And the only announcements, or at least from what I could tell, yes, the only announcements have to do with the 126 release. Tomorrow, by the end of the day, is when KEPS, our enhancement freeze, happens. So you have about one more day. The SIG CLI has at least one KEP that looks like it's going to be implementable for 126. Thanks a lot to Katrina Aviri for putting in a lot of effort in that review for the kubectl explain using OpenAPI v3. And then once this enhancement freeze happens tomorrow, the next major signpost is the code freeze, which happens in November, on November 9th, Wednesday. So also, in addition, Maciej would like us all to know that if you got some emails about calendars, that everything is okay. Is that a good summary of that, Maciej?
Yeah, you can safely ignore. We had some issues with the previous calendar with regards to ownership, and we just had to switch entirely to a new calendar. So nothing has changed with regards to meetings, times, except for what Katrina wrote below, the KRM functions project meeting is being canceled in favor of the regular biweekly SIG CLI calls. So if you have any KRM related topics, feel free to drop them in our biweekly calls. By the way, Sean, can you make me a co-host? I'll share the agenda.
I had a hard time understanding that last one. What was that, Maciej?
Can you make me a co-host? I'll be able to share the agenda.
Yes. So. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Maciej. So now we're going to do introductions before we get into topics, and this is the time for your SIG CLI colleagues to meet you if you'd like. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, if you haven't been here before or if it's been a while, this is the time we take for that. Would anyone like to introduce themselves?
I'm Ed Overton. I'm just checking in. I work for SAS. We use K8s for deployments, and so I'm mainly looking to get a feel for what's going on. And so I figured attending a few meetings would help get me a little more oriented.
That's a good idea. Welcome.
And my name is David Goffman. I'm a senior software engineer, and currently I'm providing the seminars for CTU University, and we are struggling with some missing kubectl command. That's the reason why today I would like to present my 3 pull requests. I hope by the end of the meeting we have some. We'll go forward with my pull requests. Thank you.
Welcome, David.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else? Okay, why don't we move on to the topics so we've added a couple of David's PRs here. We've also added, we may want to look at the create network policy link, which has a general approach to how we want to deal with create commands. And so David, it was important to come to the meeting in order to understand our general approach to how we intend to develop the kubectl create command. And so just to be transparent, it may not be possible to merge your PRs, but it was important, I thought, to at least have a discussion on where, if we're not going to keep adding particular resources to the kubectl create, then what is our general approach to kubectl create? And we've written down a few things, and it's important to share that with the community. So back in, what was this, in 2020 with Phil, when he was working, when he was the SIG lead, he had some ideas on where the kubectl create command should go. And so I think that sounds like the correct path, which may not align with the PRs, David. And so I'd like to get other people's feedback on that. If we still think that we want to do the generator approach.
The overall generator approach is definitely one that we want to pursue, but most likely will require a little bit more time to get done as a command. As a stopgap, if I remember correctly, I covered this topic last time or 2 weeks ago, where I mentioned that it would be interesting, because we've had that issue a couple of times mentioned, to allow certain commands to be extended with subcommands. Currently, if you try to create a plugin which will be shadowing one of the built-in commands, that will not be possible. So for example, you cannot create kubectl create whatever resource. We initially did that because we said that we don't want to allow that, but we said that we might reconsider that option in the future. And since the topic of the create subcommands is returning over and over again by various parties, I raised the topic of opening the create subcommand for plugins. So instead of creating a kubectl built-in command, people would be allowed to create their own subcommands, their own plugins, which would hook into the create subcommand. So in your particular case, David, that will be create network policy. The reason that we don't want to add them into the default into kubectl is because the cost of maintaining those create subcommands is growing over time, and the value that you can get out of the create is usually limited, because it's helpful to have them simplistic and just for starters. But if you want to grow them eventually into sophisticated commands, that's not something that we want to invest our time into maintaining. So allowing the mechanism for plugins for create subcommands would be the ideal middle ground. And in the long run, we would like to see something like generate, where a command would be looking at the open API definition of a resource, and based on that, it will be capable of creating either some kind of a stub or through flags will allow you to modify the resource. But yeah, we just need someone interested in pursuing this topic specifically. I can't remember if we have already a cap written down. I don't recall, but there's definitely that issue that Sean pointed out. Should have some pointers.
Yeah, the issue I think also mentions that we would want it to be exposed through a separate gen command, ideally, because as a teaching tool, we want to teach people the like preferred flow, the declarative workflow, so that you do gen and then apply instead of an imperative teaching workflow. And another thing that occurred to me that's sort of related to this when I was reviewing the explain OpenAPI v3 cap is that if we got that additional information into the OpenAPI v3, then other commands could leverage that to like explain is also a teaching tool. And it'd be really cool if we showed that gen example in the explain output, right? So I think there's a lot of value to this approach that we've discussed on this issue.
So can I ask you, so it will be new command, it can be gen or it maybe will call design. And I agree, maybe it's actually a good idea to just go to a new command. The reason why, because create, and again, I came to this three missing commands because they're actually required for getting the CCAT and CKA certificates. Those actually commands actually part of the latest Linux foundational image and actually required to create using those three commands. And definitely go to documentation, copy, paste YML file into your existing one. It may be a mess because actually you have to work on the indent and sometimes actually VI shifting all lines by indent by paddings. So that actually my reason why I create those three commands, because actually it's required for passing the certification. But if you will have a different command like design or gen, I will highly recommend remove two additional attributes. It's dry run client and -o, so people just can create the command and see manifest on output. So, and then they just can save this output manifest into file and then execute apply. I agree with this approach as well, but we need some manifest generator for those three resources.
So just as a quick aside, one of the most common uses for kubectl create for the resources that are supported is a minus dry run and then a -o YAML, which will actually generate the YAML for subsequent apply. It actually has a couple of extra fields like the creation timestamp that you may have to clear out before you apply it. But I think a very common workflow for people who are trying to generate YAMLs is to do it with kubectl create and the dry run.
Right, so that's like a sort of a workaround to what the gen approach would do as the first class feature.
Yep.
And yeah, this would be driven through OpenAPI ideally instead of hard coding in the specific command. It would work for any resources, even third party.
And the version skew issue would also be ameliorated since the OpenAPI is coming from the server, and instead of compiling in a particular version of a resource.
But if we create a new command, let's say design, instead of create design, we don't need those two attributes, right? Because design, it's not for create. Design is just design manifest file. In this case, we can include additional attributes. What are missing in create?
Yeah, I think that was what Katrina was saying, was that instead of the kind of the hack of the -o YAML with the dry run, this will actually generate it natively. Is that correct, Katrina?
It would generate it natively coming off of the Open API, and then it would be a new command, yes. So we could have a different option set there, and that would be probably things like, well, by default, it's not gonna create anything. It would be client side only. It would output it, and then if you do want to then create, you would pipe it to create using to create or apply. The other thing that we could do with Gen would be to have an option that makes them throws the user into an editor so that they're just using whatever we encode in OpenAPI as a starting point, and then they mess with it before whatever they were going to do next, commit it or create it or whatever that may be. So yeah, it would be a new command, and we would have to think about what options we wanted to expose and whether or not we wanted to deprecate some options on create once those are available, because they're really not, and just basically pointing people to the new flow. In short, there's a lot to think about here. I think we all agree about this plan that's sort of sketched out on this issue, but it is a significant amount of effort, and it requires the full KEP process to move forward, which is called out on an issue itself, I believe. So we really need someone who's passionate about this topic to champion it and bring forward a KEP for the SIG to consider, and then actually put in the work to move this forward.
So I'd like to thank David for kind of instigating this very interesting discussion. I think that we're probably not going to go forward with the particular PRs that you put time into, and we're sorry for that.
No problem. It's not sorry. I'm just wondering when we'll get this command. Do we have some timeline?
That's a great question.
Yeah, like I was just saying, like things don't just happen. We need folks to champion them who are passionate about the need for them and about making them happen, right? So someone needs to step up, perhaps yourself, if you, it sounds like you're pretty passionate. We would love to have you champion that KEP process and drive it forward for the SIG. There's nobody in particular, you can see the issues from 2020, there's no one in particular who has claimed the work on that so far.
I can take this ownership, I need someone who I will able to communicate during that process, because I need someone who will be getting the approval, because I cannot just create the pull request and keep tracking on my local machine. I would like some guy who will be actually helping me. I can create the command and I can create the new pull request belongs to this command. Currently, for example, I work in new command, it's called format. So my new command, what I'm working right now, format actually will be formatting YML. So usually when you pay, and by the way, just give me some idea, should I continue or not? So idea is here, you can place YML file, but maybe your indents are not correct. Maybe it's actually some parameters, like let's say mount volume or volume actually shifting maybe 2 spaces left or maybe extra space to the right. So my idea of the format will analyze your manifest file and also will be validate the schema. And I believe right now you're using the Swagger. When I look on the not documentation, look inside the code of the kubectl, kubeapply, you're using the Swagger. So you're validating Swagger schema, and based on the Swagger, I can actually correct my YML output. So instead of just give the exception what everybody getting every time, YML cannot be accepted. It will be help to correct the YML, because again, I like the YML, it's better than JSON, but YML has a problem with indents, and sometimes it's not easy to validate or can visually see something wrong in the maybe extra space. So this format function, what currently I'm working, will be at least try to format your YML if it's some problem with indents.
I'm hearing 2 questions there. both related to the process for getting fairly major new features accepted into kubectl. So if it's a net new command that you've come up with yourself, as in this last case with the format, sounds very cool. What we usually recommend folks to do is start with a plugin that is a proof of concept, and they can circulate and folks can try it out and see how it works. And then if it proves successful and popular, then we can start the enhancement proposal process to potentially add it to kubectl proper. But we usually want to see that first step of like sort of proof of concept that folks can try out as a plugin for commands like that. The case with kubectl generate is a little different because this is something that the SIG has already agreed to in that old discussion on the issue and today and probably some other meetings in the past where we already have that initial consensus. So I think we're ready to move forward with the enhancement proposal process at this point. And that you can do proof of concepts in support of your enhancement proposal, but really what needs to happen is writing up in the enhancements repo. There's this template that you fill out with your proposal and the plan and what the details of the command would look like. And that is where the SIG will all come together to collaborate on the design and support you in making the plan something that we're able to move forward with. And it's only after we have that merged as implementable that the work on the feature itself begins and it gets added to the milestone for inclusion in a future release. So it actually comes back to some of the announcements we made today about what's going into the next release. That has to do with this whole process of how the Kubernetes project makes enhancements and plans work together. So yeah, the next step for if you wanted to champion generate isn't to make more PRs, it's to, well, I guess it is a PR too, but to make the PR with the enhancements proposal for that feature. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Maybe I will keep contact with you if you'll send me your personal information. I will glad to have personal contact with you and you'll maybe help me to navigate with all this process because again, I'm new.
I think we prefer to work in the open as a SIG. So if you join the SIG CLI channel, then you can get support from any SIG member who has more experience with the process instead of relying on one particular lead to help you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. But I can start working with generate because generate already approved, right? I can start working on the generate and make the request. My pull request move to under generate repository.
No, we need to go through the enhancements process to see what exactly that would look like and design and get the design approved and the feature tracked through the enhancement proposal process for that one as well.
I see.
So just a quick note, if you look in the chat, Eddie's pointing out that there was a proof of concept and Eddie has the link where he's worked on the kubectl generate as a proof of concept.
Okay, I will
No,
review it.
that'd be a good place to start. Appreciate all the enthusiasm. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
If you're curious what the enhancements for a new command should look like, we've been working on events command. So the enhancement describing a new event command and what the enhancement should look like. You'll find it under Kubernetes enhancement. There's a 6 CLI, cap 6 CLI 1440 is a description what the document should look like, what it should include, what are their requirements, and everything. We're currently working on pushing the events over to beta in 1.26. So that should give you a rough feel. What do we expect from such document describing the command?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Can you share this link also to the chat, please?
I will do it.
Yeah, and that's actually enhancement. It will be just new README file under
new directive. You need to create an issue under Kubernetes enhancement. Every every document has its own issue, and the issue you're roughly describing the idea behind this proposal, and then you'll be also linking all the issues and and the progress of the work. And then out of that, you will be creating a new pull request, specifically adding the documents required by the CAP. There are 3 documents, 2 YUMs. One is describing the CAP, one is following the prod readiness, and the other one is the README MD, which is the entire description of the enhancement.
But
And-
in the Git, should I create a new branch, or how it's actually again? Can you give me just start point? How can start
So
enhancement?
you create a pull request with all those directories. Have a look at the kubectl events in the that 40 issue in the Kubernetes enhancement. It has all the links through all the implementations, both in the CAP and the actual code that is adding those commands.
Okay.
And Kubernetes.
Okay, I will try to review. Yeah,
40 and
thank
40
you.
is your starting point, and then just follow all the links, and you should be able to figure out how this works.
Excellent. Thank you.
So if we, so great. Let's. So I think we've covered that pretty well. If it's okay with the SIG, we can move on to the next topic with Noah. Is Noah here? Okay. So Noah's mentioning a particular PR that needs review.
This is just asking for reviews on this particular PR. There has been several back and forth from what I see, so you just need to have a look at it and add and make sure that whatever has been written in this document makes sense. Doesn't look like super complicated, just someone has to spend some time and double check if it makes sense.
Okay, great. Can we move on to stand-ups? Okay, Brian's been doing some real good work with the translate. Really appreciate all of that effort, Brian.
Sure. Yeah, so since last meeting, I did create a blog post that we talked about. After I created, so it was a great exercise, but after I created it, I think I kind of realized that it didn't really fit the content that's in the k8s.io blog. So I think it was Tim Bannister, or maybe somebody else that mentioned there's another blog, k8s.dev, that might be a better place for it. But in the meantime, Katrina pointed me to a community survey request that can be used to send a poll out to the entire community. And they also offer some help in kind of crafting what that poll looks like and analyzing the data as well as publicizing it. So that might be a good approach. So I did create a draft poll, and that's kind of, I guess, what we might submit to them to publicize for us. And then at that point, I think we kind of talked about maybe doing a blog post at the same time as that poll is released to kind of add context or further publicize it, I guess. And then I think part of it is like figuring out, like, what are we going to do with the data once we get it? Are we, I think what's on the table is, hey, should we continue doing translations, or should we take them out altogether? Or maybe there's some middle ground where we put them on hold. And I did reach out to some people in the SIG docs localization on Slack. And one of the things there were several good comments and things, but one of the things was like, hey, maybe there's some threshold that, you have to meet this threshold in order to turn on translations for a particular language. And so maybe there's some middle ground there where we turn them off and we say, look, unless you get to some percent complete, then we're not going to turn it on for this language. And then I think there's probably some coordination efforts and everything else on a release by release basis to kind of look at what the percentage is for each language, and then reach out to whoever it is that can be a resource for translating things. So yeah, that's where it stands right now. I guess next steps are figuring out if the poll is ready, and if so, when do we want to release that, and what do we hope to do with the results?
Quick question, Brian, when you talk to the localization channel, did it sound like there were experts that we would be able to rely on to get some more translations for particular languages, or are they missing? Do they have holes for particular languages? Do they have really good coverage for other languages? Did you get a sense for any of that?
I mean, I think there are resources there. There's some crossover, obviously, in the people that translate the docs, and I think they are largely unaware that maybe not even aware that kubectl has translations, or if they are, don't know where they are set. So I think there's people there that we can tap as resources. We probably need to make it easier and more clear how they can contribute. I don't know that a lot of people even know how to contribute the translations.
Okay.
So I guess the next step, I'm thinking the next step is to come to consensus on what the poll should contain, and try to get that out there. And then, I mean, ultimately, I guess, I feel a little bit conflicted, because I'm obviously not a user of the translations. So I don't want to be the one to come in and say, like, hey, I'm really advocating for, let's take out translations. So that's kind of where I'm hesitant on doing that. So I don't know what the right way is to involve more stakeholders into this decision, I guess. That makes sense.
Was there any one place where we were getting feedback on the incompleteness of translations before, or was this instigated by ourselves?
No, it came from, there was a pull request a few weeks back that somebody was literally taking out all the I-18N stuff. And I was like, well, okay, that's probably a little bit drastic, but the sentiment behind it was that, hey, these translations are really incomplete, so they're not even useful to me. So I think we should just take them out. And I was like, okay, I can kind of see that. And I don't know, maybe it's an overblown thing. I mean, it's not hurting anything that we have that in there, or is it? I guess that's what the poll is hoping to find out, is when somebody is using it in Japanese and they run kubectl help and like 90% of it is in English, is that worse than no? And I think that's where the poll comes in. Is that worse than no translations to people who do use kubectl in another language?
Yeah.
Yeah, the two concerns that I have that I think the poll is a good way to address is like finding out that basic information, like exactly what you just said, but to actually find that out based on the poll, we need to make sure that we can get the poll to the right set of people, which is potentially folks who, aren't English first language. So we need to be able to reach the right communities with our poll, and hopefully the community survey collaborators can help us with that angle. And the other one is that if we get an overwhelming response that that we do want to keep these and make them better, how do we find the right set of people to help out with that? And should we be doing something in the poll to see if there's folks who want it and are interested in helping? Like, how do we approach that?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And And there's also there's also the option that, it's not causing any harm to have we could also just use issues. I mean, we've had one person raise an issue about it, but maybe we just kind of monitor the issues, and if more people start raising issues about it, then we deal with it. I don't want to. This is certainly not like a big thing that I care a lot about, and I'm trying to push through or anything. So I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's also the option of doing nothing, and so I'm open to that option as well if people think that is an okay approach.
I think the person making that PR to try to delete everything is a good tripwire for us to think like, oh, the translations have degraded to a state where somebody is bringing this opinion. So I think taking that opportunity to at least do the poll and get the information from communities to the extent we can makes a lot of sense. And I'm still in favor of that personally.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. So the poll is a good place to like at least gather more information, and like you said, maybe and do it in a way, because we're going to get one shot at the poll, so we can use that at the same time to collect, maybe add another question is like that says, if you're willing to help out with translations, put your contact, put your GitHub handle or email address or whatever here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Brian. Please let us know well, you could reach out to me if I can help to get the poll out. But it sounds like you guys are already have already made good progress there. Okay, Katrina, would you like to talk about Kustomize?
Yeah, this is just a quick follow-up on what I mentioned at our last biweekly.
Are you,
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, it's just a quick follow-up. I mentioned that I was going to be putting together a spreadsheet to help coordinate the docs migration efforts, and I did do that. So I have a link to the spreadsheet here, and in case it's not self-explanatory, there's also more detailed instructions in the issue that is tracking the overall consolidation effort. So just to recap what this means, customized docs are scattered across a bunch of different places, and it would be really helpful to customize this community to improve that situation, and also helpful to the maintainers so that we are more easily able to keep those docs up to date. And respond to documentation requests. So this is something that we could really use the community's help on. It has a very low barrier to entry. It's very simple, straightforward, granular tasks. Not the most glamorous perhaps, but a big help to the community. And if you're interested in getting involved in Kustomize but aren't familiar with the tool, it's also a great way to, as you review these docs, you'll learn more about the Kustomize tool, you'll test out the examples, and then you'll be in a better position to start making code contributions in the future. So if you're looking to get involved, an approachable way to help the SIG, this docs issue is maybe a good opportunity for you. And yeah, if you have any follow-up questions on that, you can comment on the issue, or there's a customized channel, a customized specific channel in the Slack.
Cool. Thank you very much. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that somebody would like to bring up while we have the SIG together? Okay, it looks like we're going to get some time back today. I will stop recording.